Super Junior Tag League is down to its final day. All the block matches are done except for the final night of action that will determine the finals. And then we have the Tanahashi final homecoming in Gifu. So we will be reviewing the action from the past week, talk a little bit about the state of wrestling and the wrestling business in Japan, and look ahead to the Tanahashi homecoming show. So let's just get right to it. With Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. This is Speaking of Strong Style. Welcome, everyone, to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. We're contributors to the Fight Game Media Network. Jeremy, we have had a lot of shows to watch this week in New Japan. Did you manage to do anything else this week? How was your week since we last talked?
Man, I had the busiest week. Before we got started, you mentioned that your partner had a birthday this past Saturday.
Yes, indeed.
And I could tell you that there were a number of people in my life that seemed to have birthdays in October, and we decided to celebrate that all throughout the week, including sushi for all my friends on Friday night. And then we went to John LaRocca, who does the Fight Game podcast with Garrett Gonzalez. It was his birthday yesterday, and we surprised him by going out to lunch and not just telling him I was going, but then everyone else showed up, and so we all had a big group lunch, and he wasn't expecting it. But the confluence of why I wanted to mention this to you, Stephen, is actually because of a conversation we had about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And I'm going to bring that conversation up, and hopefully my ability to do technology is all right.
All right.
I haven't told you this, but I'm actually going to go see Mick Foley do a live stand-up in less than 3 weeks, just down the street from my house.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So the gang and I, Garrett, Miguel Rubio, I think Dave Rubio, all those guys, we're all going with our significant others. We're bringing Dave along. Dave's going to the show. So we're all making it a thing on October 28th to go see Mick Foley do his stand-up, and maybe I'll get ballsy enough to see if he can have comedic bits about Japanese death matches in the IWA.
That'll be fun. I bet that'll be a fun show to see. Well,
guess
Jeremy,
what he talked about unprompted on this show, Stephen?
Did he go into his IWA death matches, Jeremy?
He, as a matter of fact, second bit of the show was talking about his time with Cactus Jack, doing the death matches in Japan, and talking about his impression of Terry Funk. A lot of Terry Funk in the story. Then he obviously went into the Hell in the Cell match, but he spoke about one of the death matches that he had with Terry Funk, and near the end of one of the matches, they had the crowd, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're both on the ground, and Terry whispers over to Foley, "Pile drive my cactus." What? "Pile drive my cactus. Pile drive me." You just hear Mick Foley like, "I'm full of blood. I'm dying here," and he just wants me to pile drive him to take it home. And God bless him, I did, and that was that. And then he brought back the voice of Cactus when he explained he had no idea how the two shoes ended up in the middle of the Hell in the Cell, and then he recapped how he got to that point to the people that weren't there in the show. So thank you, Fernando Zayas, for bringing up that topic 3 weeks ago about Cactus Jack and the death matches. It all came full circle, and I wanted him to personally know that I yelled "son of a bitch" when Mick Foley in the middle of the show decided he was going to go into the IWA death matches, and everyone around me just kind of looked at me and was like, "Yeah, no, it's a thing. Just back to the show." So other highlights of that thing, Dave Meltzer and friend of the show, Miguel Rubio, getting serenaded on stage by Mick Foley for their birthdays.
Oh, my Lord.
And Miguel hoping it never happens again.
I can imagine. And Fernando Zayas is here. He's in the chat. He says, "What's up, fellas? Happy Hallows Eve, of course, tomorrow being Halloween and all that." And so, Fernando, we're glad you're here to hear that because you've had quite the effect on the show and the people on the show lately. So there you have it.
Yeah, I figured the best way to preface that was just pulling the clip from the episode and just like because it was on my mind for the last 3 weeks. It was just kind of like the IWA death matches. Don't forget about the IWA death matches. And then he brought it up unprompted, and I was like, there we go.
So for people watching, without giving too much of it away, if Mick Foley comes to the town of some of our listeners and things, would you recommend the show? Was it a good time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had a fantastic time. My wife, who by knowledge of being married to me, knows wrestling, has made a legitimate effort to watch Total Divas and find that avenue to kind of get in there. And because she knows who Mick Foley is, but she still found it engaging for a different reason because he's a really excellent storyteller. And he comes in and he was wearing the flannel and a Cactus Jack shirt, and he will auction it off every night to the highest bidder and donate the proceeds to the Cauliflower Alley Club.
Okay. Well, that's great. It's sorry, we had a bit of an interruption here. Am I okay? Are you hearing me all right?
Yeah, I heard you. I just you went quiet, and I was like, maybe.
No, sorry about that. No, I thought I'm getting a little thing here on my computer that said maybe I wasn't, but I just wanted to.
No, you're all good. Yeah, so he donates to the Cauliflower Alley Club, and it was San Jose, and we were hoping that San Jose would show out, and there was a bit of a bidding war, and the proceeds reached $1,200.
$1,200. Oh, terrific. That's nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good. Well, folks, if Mick Foley comes in your area, go ahead and go get tickets. You might have an interesting evening, and there's even a Japan tie-in to it. So there you have it. So I spent my week, like you mentioned, my partner had a birthday, so we celebrated that, and I've been watching the World Series, of course. I got my my Cubs on here, although they're not in it. It's the Dodgers.
You bleed blue for the World Series, apparently.
Well, yeah, and so does the World Series. Everybody's wearing blue. Yeah. But it's been exciting. It's been a terrific World Series, and of course, Shohei Ohtani is doing things that no human being has ever done before or was considered possible before Shohei Ohtani. So it's been fascinating watching that. And I also caught the Marigold Grand Destiny show from Sunday.
Right.
And
you mentioned that.
We're going to talk about that a little bit later when we talk about the overall state of the wrestling business in Japan a little bit later in the show. More on that in a bit, but just had a great time watching that. And that was a really nice Sunday morning. It took place overnight here in the United States. And Sunday morning, I woke up, the show was right there. And I sat down with my coffee and watched a hell of a good wrestling show from Marigold. So also catching some CMLL. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and CMLL has been featuring the women more. Right. And they have the pink ropes up in the ring, and some of the women. They had an all women's show, a couple of them actually at Arena Mexico, and overall they're just getting featured more than usual. FWC from Stardom, Hazuki and Koguma are touring Japan with CMLL right now, and it seemed to be absolutely loving it according to their social media, and the matches have been pretty good, and they're fantastic. They're one of the best teams on planet Earth, male or female, and they are getting used to that lucha style and working that way. It's always a bit of an adjustment at first, but they've really taken off, and they seem to be getting over a little bit with some of the dives and jumps and the sentons and splashes. Seems to be working. So good to see that Japanese influence in Mexican wrestling as well.
The crossover is real. The ability for the synergy on these companies that don't get the day-to-day attention that WWE and AEW do, doing what they can to get their wrestlers better, just quietly under the radar. Talent exchanges. Going across. That's how this business gets better. Like frankly, like that's if AEW is not going to have like an infrastructure for wrestlers to get better, and they're not actively getting these wrestlers out to the indies and they have to book it themselves. Meanwhile, WWE's training is all insulated Like once you're in the system, you train within the system and you don't do anything otherwise.
Right.
Kind of leaves like this big open area in between where all these other promotions, frankly, just need to work with each other to put some salt and pepper on the seasoning for the wrestlers.
All right. Fernando has a question. Now it's tomorrow's Halloween. Who's your favorite spooky gimmick wrestler ever? Who has your favorite spooky gimmick? It's a good one.
Well, this has nothing to do with the individual. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you can top The Undertaker.
I mean, he's certainly the most popular.
He's the most iconic, and there was spooky. You didn't say like magical or demonic. You know what I mean? It's just kind of that whole like vibe of just making your skin kind of crawl. I think there were other wrestlers that did a pretty good job. What was the name of that? I think Abyss was pretty good in TNA. I thought he was a pretty decent spooky wrestler. I don't know if there's really an iconic spooky wrestler other than like Sting in AEW and WCW.
And so you're talking about like Down from the Rafters, the Crow version of Sting.
Yeah, like the Crow version definitely played on the mystique and just kind of this guy was being reborn from the image that he was before. So given the Crow allegory to it, it's definitely, spookiness, because that whole story was basically the guy died and a crow brought him back from the dead, and then he has the powers of a crow and he got revenge. So it's kind of there. What about you? Like I'm going with the easy obvious ones, but every time spooky doesn't work. Bray Wyatt is probably better than Undertaker. But I don't
know. Bray Wyatt wasn't. Bray Wyatt was not a good wrestler. He was a good gimmick, but he wasn't a good wrestler.
The gimmick overtook the work rate.
See, 100%. Maria just got mine. This is what I was waiting to say, but Maria got mine. Maria Graciela Sayas is here, of course, and she mentioned Kevin Sullivan in mid-'80s Florida is my favorite, when he was walking the line of saying a lot of
the cult leader gimmick,
cult leader stuff, yes, without using the word Satan or the devil, because he's a Catholic Irish guy from Boston, and he said his mom would have killed him if he'd have come out there and just said Satan. He grew up an Irish Catholic boy from Boston. But Kevin Sullivan, as talking about Cthulhu and all this stuff and all these random occult type of names that he would throw out in his promos against Dusty Rhodes, was great stuff. And then he had Purple Haze was Mark Lewin, who's one of the Hall of Fame level wrestler for many, many years. He had Bob Roop out there with him, and woman Nancy Sullivan was Fallen Angel and things was out there with him. So it was quite a group in Florida. And then he brought that into. He did it in WCW. He did it in Smoky Mountain. Even he came out in Smoky Mountain. So he parlayed that cult leader gimmick into a long career. But yeah, that's probably my favorite spooky thing was Sullivan, just because he was so effective against Big Dusty. And Dusty's last really good feud in Florida before Florida fizzled out. Dusty ended up going to book for Jim Crockett Promotions, and it was kind of Dusty's last big thing in Florida. That might be wrong. Somebody else might say, no, he feuded with this guy and made a lot of money. Probably true, but it's the one that I remember as the last hurrah before Florida Championship Wrestling kind of fizzled away.
So Mike Sempervive reached out via other channels while this broadcast was going, and his submission was La Parka.
La Parka is a terrific one. Yeah, the Day of the Dead. That's a good one. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he just sent out the gif of La Parka in WCW strumming a steel chair, and I'm like, you know what? Fair play to that one.
That's a good one. I was going to say La Parka. There are several guys that have done Day of the Dead type of gimmicks in Mexican wrestling history. Of course, El Satanico is one. But
Rey Mysterio had the iconic one where he was basically dressed as the Phantom in that Halloween Havoc match against Eddie Guerrero years ago. So
yeah, but La Parka kind of made it stick more than almost anybody else. That's a good one. And Maria mentions he also created Luna Vachon, or that character. Luna Vachon, part of the whole Vachon wrestling family, and was a good wrestler and way ahead of her time. She would have fit in nowadays better than she did in her own time when there really wasn't a whole lot of female wrestling that could go at her level. But Luna Vachon was one that had the crazy thing going, and all the veins painted into the side of her head and things. She was kind of spooky.
Let's bring it home. Who's the spookiest New Japan wrestler you can think of?
The spookiest New Japan. Have there really been too many of them out there?
I'm gonna go with Doki.
Doki, maybe, yeah. The one that comes to mind for me is actually somebody who, as far as just, it's different than what we're talking about, not necessarily spooky, but just looks scary, is when Leon White first came down in that big Van Vader with the giant mask that blew the smoke out of the top of it and things like that. That's one where you just looked at the guy and think, we're all about to die. This guy's going to kill all of us. He was pretty spooky. Yeah, Abdullah the Butcher, if you want to go out there. I mean, but I'll tell you what.
Evil Sonata when they were in LIJ doing the tag team gimmick?
They were never scary. They were never spooky.
No, spooky. It's not scary. It's spooky.
No,
he would basically come out like he was the Grim Reaper at these Wrestle Kingdom shows.
I suppose so.
You're living the gimmick here.
Yeah, Fernando Zayas bringing up Vampiro. Vampiro made a good career off of that. Yeah, they sure did. That was a good example.
They did a lot of spooky in Lucha Underground. You want a spooky vibe? Just watch Lucha Underground during Halloween. You'll get terrible wrestling, sometimes really good wrestling, but tons of spooky.
Now, if you want to go really campy, really, really campy, both in the Memphis territory and then later on in Smoky Mountain, two different guys. But there was the Mummy. And it was a guy in a mummy suit they brought out there with a manager, and they Jim Cornette in Smoky Mountain even covered him with either talc or baby powder, so that when he would come up and club the baby face, a big poof of dust would come up out of him. And I think there was a mummy, and it was based on a character, the Mummy from Memphis, who terrorized, I think, Jerry Jarrett and Tojo Yamamoto when they were the top baby faces out there, and Jeff's father, Jerry, who later owned the Memphis territory. And the Mummy was a famous camp character. And then they had the Monster for the LaBelle promotion in, I think it was 1981 in Los Angeles. And they said that this is a guy who was created in a factory. It was basically, the guy's gimmick was Frankenstein's monster. And that was his thing. And this won the very first, here's the history of it all, Jeremy, won the very first worst promotional tactic or most disgusting promotional tactic in the Observer Awards. The very first one was one of the first ones. No, I think the first one was Bob Backlund still being champion, which is asinine. But the second one, I think, was the Monster being created by LaBelle Promotions, saying that he had been built in a lab, and that was a wrestler that was running around in the ring, built in a laboratory. If you want to get really campy, they've gone that way. They've gone the Frankenstein meets Wolfman type of creature feature gimmicks. There have been a couple of those in wrestling, and IWA Japan had Leatherface. It was Mike Kirshner, the guy who played Corporal Kirshner in the WWF after his career was over, came out in a Leatherface with a chainsaw. There was no chain on it, but it still had the noise, and he would just go through. And if you watch those things, he would walk through the crowd and just part the people like the Red Sea as they would just run screaming from Leatherface as he would go to do his death match. That was one.
I may make your brain explode as I wrap this topic up, but they are kind of doing that same gimmick now in AEW. So
there's an attempted murder every week on AEW. Why not?
There is, but Luchasaurus was at one point kill switch and working for Christian, and then in real life he got sick and pneumonia and he went away for a while. His return was a video vignette of kill switch being unearthed from the ground, and Jack Perry took him to a lab and injected him with some chemicals, and he came back to life, and he's now Luchasaurus, and Jack Perry was the mad scientist friend who brought him back to life, and this is actually established between two different AEW pay-per-views.
It's
I made your brain explode. I did it. Happy Halloween.
I don't even know what to do with that. Yeah, I'm trying to. What was Terry Gordy's gimmick in WWF? Had to do with the Undertaker and Mankind, where they buried the Undertaker alive. The first buried alive thing. What was that? I was there for it. I was in Indianapolis. I watched this match happen.
Well, that's
it was
on
a
you
big
then.
pile of dirt. It was a big pile of dirt, and it was Terry Gordy under he was an executioner. He was just the executioner, but he was the executioner's hood. That was his mask, and he wrestled the Undertaker, and they ended up burying the Undertaker alive with.
I am on record with being out of wrestling during that time.
Well, yeah, you probably did. That was a good decision for you.
I have tried to recover through those and watch the WrestleManias in between, and they got good a little later on.
He was just the executioner. That's just what they call him, the executioner. There he is. Yes. He came in. He had a scythe. Of course he did.
So, Steven, should we talk about the Super Junior Tag League tournament that I actually buried on Wrestling Observer Live?
Well, there's no segue to it, is there? We just got to cut right to this thing. The Super Junior Tag Team Tournament. Here is we're going to go over the standings, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. Now, we're not going to cover this like we cover some of the other tournaments, and we'll explain why in a little bit. We're going to go over the standings, and we're going to look at each team and talk about their tournaments. Does that sound okay to you?
Could I preface this first?
Please.
Okay. There are two bits of information that I'd like to point out here. Number one, if you go to the NewJapan1972.com website and look at their schedule, their tip-top web work right now has the last night of this tournament ending, Steven, on October 1st, 2025.
Okay.
In addition to that, Steven,
not November 1st.
I'm just gonna not even beat around the bush here. This is the block of A block that they released today.
Okay.
And see if you notice the issue.
Okay, here we go. Oh, bloody hell. Well, yeah.
That's not right.
It's not correct. Yeah, it's a good point. Okay. So get this thing out of here before it confuses me. But but this is the perfect illustration
that is the official standings that New Japan released on social media and on their own website for the results of this final night. They had Doki and Sho listed as winning 10 points with a clean sweep of the block. But if you look at the actual block, it had Yo and Master Wato as the one with the clean sweep.
Yeah, sure does, doesn't it?
It really does.
It really does. Boy, they didn't even put the right dots in the right places. And there was another one where I think Robbie Eagle's picture in a match promo was replaced by Evil. It was like Evil with TMDK. This is a perfect illustration, Jeremy, of how little thought New Japan has put into the Super Junior Tag League. They're not bothering to put the correct results on their webpage. They are not bothering to put the correct pictures up on the website. And this tournament as a whole was creatively lifeless. And we're going to get to that. We're going to get to it in a minute. What they decided to do, incredibly to me, to go with two undefeated teams in block action on the final night. So that would have been Yo and Master Wato against Doki and Sho. Now, in and of itself, that's not too bad, but the way they booked it, the second to last night of block action was literally inconsequential. Yes. The two teams had already clinched.
We already knew who was going to be.
The people that went there that night only got matches from that block, and they were only matches that didn't matter in the standings whatsoever. That's what they did to those poor people in Sato City, which is an island they hadn't been to in decades. It was something like since the 1990s, perhaps, since they had been to Sato Island out in Niigata. It's this island that they drew about 600 fans or something like that showed up to this thing. And what they got was a card of preview tags and block matches that literally had no bearing on the standings and wouldn't affect them. What in the world is going on? This company didn't used to be this bad. And it's just like, and I think, Jeremy, that the B block was supposed to be the same thing.
I agree with you.
Taiji Ishimori's illness accidentally made the last night intriguing. But I don't think they meant to.
Yeah, the whole thing was just kind of like, I suspect we were supposed to have 4 undefeated teams going into the final 4 block tonight to just basically show what this is. You know what I mean? Like, it just, and the minute that forfeit, it's just kind of everybody threw the hand up like, well, there goes that one. I guess we'll just go out there and have a match. But and I wrote copy for Wrestling Recover Live just as a way to get this show out there. You know, just kind of I will give reports for these like shows that he's not watching, and then he'll throw my name and our podcast on there. And you was able to read it off on Tuesday. And on Tuesday, I'm explaining that there's 4 nights of block play left or whatever, and 5 of the teams are already eliminated.
No,
it's like there was almost no tension to it because there just wasn't.
No,
they Ninja Matt got pulled. Everything just seemed to be budgetarily inclined, both behind and in front of the scenes, and hopefully this was just kind of a cost-cutting tour to get them to the finish line, because we got a big show this weekend, and we got Wrestle Kingdom, and those tickets are paid for. You know, that money's there. They've recouped that money. So let's put some effort into this stuff and making sure that, you know, World Tag League doesn't feel like this too.
Yeah, it's very strange. I've been watching a lot of these tournaments over the years. I mean, there are 4 every year. There's a heavyweight and junior heavyweight tournament. There's a heavyweight and junior heavyweight tag tournament every year. And, well, at least in this format, since 2018 is when Super Junior Tag League had stopped being a single elimination tournament and went to this format. And my goodness, never before have they done it where an entire night of block action means nothing. Now, Fernando Zayas is liking. He says, "I'm very pleased with these brackets." The final 4, now in this case 5, accidentally, is fairly. They're good teams, and there have been some good matches, but it's just creatively lifeless at all. Mm-hmm. And some of the guys in the tournament are doing what they can do to make their part of it interesting. And we're going to talk about them as we go through.
Absolutely an MVP.
And then there are other guys who are working hard and trying, but the creative on this is as lazy as it gets. And I mean, this is we talk about T-shirt New Japan. This is T-shirt booking committee just laying down on this thing. It's a little rough, but
I would have almost rather brought in a couple more DDT guys, not called this the Super Junior Tag League, and made this like a DDT festival along with like Fantastica Mania, where you just like have matches, and maybe at the end of it, like you have a tournament inside of it within these shows. But within this, it just kind of felt like you were going through the motions and just kind of checking off boxes. We always do a Super Junior Tag League, so we got to do one this time. But no one involved had any passion for it.
And they sent them through some very small towns in Niigata. I mean, there were a couple of shows at Korakuen Hall at the beginning. The next one is in Osaka at the end. In between were some small towns. There was, I mean, Saitama is not a small town, but that tour of Niigata out there went through some pretty small places, and it did seem like an afterthought for sure. So let's bring up Block A. Now we'll talk about how it went, and let's look at each team here. So the team now, Block A's done. That one we know who the representative is in the finals, and it's Doki and Sho.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, just looking at those guys here, they had an okay tournament, but again, they're so bogged down in the House of Torture shenanigans that every one of their matches had a very flat sameness to them, and that they were cheating, of course.
Did a little mic time in the beginning, you know, each
ref
time.
Bump, of course. And then in the end, they would whack a guy with that black mirror gimmick, which is like getting hit with a lunch tray. And it just that was the finish night after night after night. There was just a very bland sameness to everything they did, but they're the junior heavyweight tag champions and they're in the finals. And, you know, there were a couple of times Doki at one point was bullying Taguchi when they were wrestling Taguchi and Dragon Dia, just being a jerk to him. And Taguchi suddenly got this angry face on, or not even an angry face, just like
I'm tired of your shit kind of,
and vibe. Started slapping hard Doki across the face. And
one of the best moments of the tournament.
Yes, he just got angry, and you just saw this. Okay, I've been screwing around too, but enough of you pieces of crap, that, and just started getting aggressive with them. It was so interesting. It was like the first, like you said, one of the highlights of the tournament. The crowd was like, "Ooh, we haven't seen this before." And then they just whacked him with the mirror and beat him. And my note in my notebook was, it was almost interesting, but this is New Japan. And they wouldn't pull the trigger on the interesting thing. They just beat him with the mirror again. And there was another example of that later in the tournament too, where Wato and Yo, they were having a decent match. Just hit him with the black mirror and beat him. It's over and over again. They just get on the precipice of maybe doing something creative, and they don't. It's just been the story with Sho and Doki. It's been okay. They're both capable wrestlers, but in the end, a bland sameness to their finishes.
I'm a big defender of like House of Torture, and I genuinely like Doki and all that, but you can't defend this. It would go both blocks, like Kanemaru and Togo and these two. It was the same thing with different results each time. Here, I'll do a different version of that. Here.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have the correct version of it that we can put up?
No, there's no correct version.
There's no correct version. They haven't fixed it. Oh,
no, that's right. I even sent a couple notes like, "Hey, you should fix this."
God Almighty! All right,
it's overnight over there, so
they
might figure it out in the morning, but
they don't care either. All right, so the other team there was Yo and Master Wato, who had a couple of good matches in this thing. They finished second, but again, it's just another example of baby faces falling short. And I know you can't put the baby faces over all the time, but this was their matches against the other teams were okay. Nothing wrong with them. There wasn't a great match in this tournament. There wasn't. No. There were a couple of good matches. If you were going to go and watch a night, I would say October 29th was probably the best one. Kushida and Yoshioka versus Togo and Kanemaru, Tiger Mask and Yamato against Eagles and Fujita, and then Robbie X and Ishimori against Kukai and Desperado. If you're going to go and watch block matches from one night, that would be the one. But there's no need to really dive into any of this.
You could just watch the TMDK matches and say, like, got the best of it. Let's watch the finals.
Yeah, for the most part. So again, Yo and Master Wato, they did fine, but nothing interesting. It was just the classic is that they wrestled well and fell short again. Just we've seen it 100 times. They didn't
even do the thing where Doki and Sho lose to Master Wato and Yo at the last night, setting up a title challenge for that. And then, the other team goes to the final and one of those team wins, and maybe they get a title match there, and then you set up a couple title matches down the line for these guys. They didn't do any of that. It's just there's going to be a winner, and then there's going to be a match. And I know that we have advocated in the past that sometimes you just want a winner and you just want a match, but you also want to feel compelled and invested through the journey of getting there, and they have completely failed to do that here. Everything about this tournament, I love this promotion, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, this tournament was a giant bag of whatever. There's really no other way to put it. It wasn't bad, it wasn't good. It was literally just a tournament that happened.
Yeah. Just the lack of creativity or thought put into this was pretty surprising. The third place team in the block was Ryusuke Taguchi and Dragon Dia. A lot of comedy in their matches for the most part, except for I mentioned the interesting moment they did with Taguchi getting very angry at Doki. I would like to see more of that. Have him have somebody, some heel, cross the line with Taguchi and bring out angry Taguchi. This used to be a thing. I mentioned it before on the show. I'll mention it again here. Before Taguchi got a little bit older and all that, he used to be, Apollo 55 was a great tag team. He used to have great matches. And there was even a moment where he would goof around for the first 5 minutes or so. And then his matches, without even anything specific happening, would kind of kick into a new gear, and he would start wrestling straight. Now it's a wrestling match. Now it is a real junior heavyweight match. And the crowd would respond to it. They would just say, oh, okay, now it's time for the serious Taguchi match. And they would start reacting like they do for Kushida, like they did for uh, uh, Prince Devitt, who was his partner and then later his rival. So it would just kind of kick in, and you're like, okay, well, we had the fun, and now here comes a serious Taguchi match. If they did something where a heel angered him to the point that he dropped the comedy and just started smoking guys and just, kicking ass, just like fire up babyface, I think people would get behind that. They did it for a few seconds. The crowd did get behind it. Dragon Dai is a terrific athlete. I enjoy it. And similar to what happened in Super Junior's singles tournament, he mostly did jobs in 2024, and in 2025 he gets a couple of wins. He got the DDT, his jump off the ropes DDT, and they won a few matches, and mostly against other guys that had a member there to do jobs. But nevertheless, overall, okay. Again, Taguchi a little bit much with some of the comedy. I thought it was again, the sameness of it. There was a lot of the same spots, and it was okay, decent showing for them, but not that I'm aching to see them as a team going forward. Although I would like to see more Dragon Dia.
That was the takeaway for me. Is like Dia's cast on Taguchi. They're always going to have him kind of in that role where he teases like that he's a real killer in the ring, but he's not. But he's not going to like be that way permanently. Kind of like Toriano in a lot of ways. Dragon Dia, that kid's got something, but I don't know if New Japan is willing to invest in him beyond what, like, he's what, DDT, right?
I think Dragon Gate, didn't he?
Dragon Gate. It was one of the two that I was in. And it just, he's clearly talented. He fits in really well with the juniors there. But at best, he's just an ambassador from another promotion that's having good matches that, honestly, I'm not sure anyone's going to take seriously in these competitive tournament style. He's just a guy to have good matches. And I hope for more from him, because this promotion needs exciting, like, fire starters in all divisions, and he has potential to have some really electric matches, singles matches with Kosei Fujita, with Desperado, with Doki. Like, he's got a young babyface energy to him. So doing that match, like a singles match with Doki, while Doki is the experienced veteran, is a really great formula. And I hope that they get there at some point.
On 4 points, Templario and Jacob Austin Young, the remnants of what's left of United Empire. We had a little bit of Callum Newman, who's pretty good on commentary. Funny guy, actually, and enjoyable to listen to on that. But Callum Newman, somebody who says he wants to lead United Empire. Finally, we have somebody who wants to lead it. Who knows? There are angles to come on that, I feel strongly about. But for now, we're looking at the smoldering remains of United Empire. Templario's fantastic. One of the best workers out there. Jacob Austin Young's a talented guy, but he was here to do the jobs. They scored 4 points. For the most part, when they featured Templario, it was really good, because that guy's just fantastic. He adapts to strong style as well as, or better than, most. He and Titan, they get it. They just understand that you can do certain elements of Lucha Libre in strong style and bring that into it and get the wow factor with it. And I'm a big fan of his. Jacob Austin Young, terrific young wrestler, but not pushed. And he was mostly there to do jobs. They did fine. 4 points.
Templario is a fantastic addition to United Empire. But there are points where I'm like, why are you here? Like, he doesn't feel like he fits, other than he was the right place, the right time, and they needed a guy, and they got him. But still, to this day, him in United Empire just feels like he was an add-on. And so when you have guys like him and Jacob Austin Young, who are both not original members, not even close to original members, and your strength is basically these two guys, and Great O'Con and Callum Newman are the only ones that are healthy, and we haven't seen Hinari yet and all this stuff. It was really hard to take United Empire seriously in this tournament. Like they're such a cold faction that I don't know, man. Like I looked at them and I was like, I hope Templario has good matches, just like you said. I think Jacob Austin Young has opportunities to really grow and wrestle a bunch of different variety wrestlers. But nothing about it was setting my world on fire. You know what I mean? Like Templario elevated the tournament, but he didn't game change it.
Okay. After that, we had 2 points. Hiromu Takahashi and Geto. More entertaining than they had a right to be, I think, on this one. Now, Geto's he's an older guy. He's not physically capable of doing the things like Dick Togo can still wrestle really well into his 50s. Geto, body's been beaten up a little bit, and he gets by on mostly doing the wily veteran spots, sneaking things around the referee and doing underhanded stuff, and a little bit of comedy, not as wacky as Taguchi, but he and Hiromu came up with some interesting things to do over here. But again, they were never supposed to be contenders. It was just supposed to be a little bit of fun in their matches before usually Geto ended up getting beat. But the fun of it was seeing how they got along. It was something like very, very different work rate sense, but like Despowato, like would these two actually make it through the tournament without turning on each other? And they did. They ended up getting along okay.
What do you think the chances are that Hiromu and Geto is a long-term pairing?
Oh, very small. I don't know what they have in mind for Geto. I honestly believe they are waiting to see who stays and who goes before they decide to do anything with the War Dogs. They're in wait and see mode to decide if there are War Dogs or how many War Dogs they have. So I feel like they are honestly in a holding pattern with this unaffiliated alliance, just to give them maybe a place to land or someone to team with should suddenly they all disappear at the beginning of the year.
If they truly shake things up in New Japan and factions and everything, like bigger than we've had in years, come in 2026, which is a possibility, I would love for there to be an evil Hiromu, and I would love for him to be somehow associated with Geto, because I enjoyed this pairing more than I thought I would, and I think I would enjoy evil Hiromu tremendously at this stage in his career.
Okay. Yeah, a heel Hiromu might be a good idea. I would not be against it.
Yeah.
I'm not even against a heel Shingo, by the way. I think that he could be a little bit nastier and a little bit more aggressive. I think it would help.
I think all these guys that have been around for years, turning them heel because they're watching this New Japan change from what they're familiar with is an excellent story.
Yep, there you go. Clark Connors and Daiki Nagai. Now, these are two really, really good wrestlers, but Nagai is still considered Young Lion-ish or Young Lion adjacent, and he's not going to get a whole lot of victories at this point. They didn't get a win in the tournament. They're good wrestlers, though. Their action in their matches was better than most. And I think Nagai is going to be a real talented guy. Like I say, he's already one of the best promos in the whole company. Connors is talented. We don't know if he's sticking around. He's gotten Wheelson over, of course, that Yokohama tire that he brings into the ring. And they found ways to use that in most of the matches. But no, certainly no.
Spare boot for the Buck?
Maybe it is. But yeah, that was, I remember watching this and my girl was with me and she just kind of said, why is there a car tire in the ringside? And I had to explain to her the whole idea of they were doing a show in Yokohama. So they brought out a Yokohama tire to get a pop from the crowd, and it got over and it stayed over. So they still have the tire, Wheelson. But you know what? Again, we're just in a holding pattern with these guys. We don't know what we're going to do with them, and it's too early for Daiki Nagai. I think if they do this Young Lion Cup that is starting to be mentioned in post-match comments by the various Young Lions, I think Nagai will be a contender for that. But
a favorite for sure.
Yeah, he and probably Marashima, but that's still to come and hasn't been announced. But in the meantime, he's still going to be paying his dues.
I think Wheelson is more over than some of the people on the tour.
Certainly.
Which, yikes on that one. But also, good job by Clark Connors. You know, he's been working on that thing since freaking the middle of the summertime. And, you know, slow, steady wins the race sometimes, I suppose. But they were a fine team. I think the idea of these odd couples losing a bunch of matches because they're just not used to each other and against these more well-oiled machines is probably the way to go with these. So, Connor and Nagai and Hiromu and Geto both like being on the back end in the bracket. Makes a ton of sense. I got no issues with that. I think better days ahead for Connor and Nagai. They had fine matches, but really forgettable, honestly.
All right, so that's Block A. Doki and Show, the winners of Block A. So going over to Block B. This one, it was also supposed to be a 2-horse race, we believe, right there. But there was a flu bug that went around the New Japan locker room, and it got Taiji Ishimori, and he had to forfeit a match. He's teaming with Robbie X. Forfeit a match against, I believe that was what, Kushida and Yuki Yoshioka.
It's the square on the grid.
Right. So with that, that put Kushida and Yoshioka in mathematically in the tournament, probably a little bit more than they were going to be. But the leaders into the clubhouse here, we're going into the final night of action. Robbie Eagles and Kosei Fujita. You mentioned that they're the MVPs of the tournament. You're absolutely right. This is the best team in New Japan right now. And I love watching these two. They are smooth as silk together. And I'm a big fan of this junior heavyweight tag team in TMDK. They have a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm. They've been a bright spot in an otherwise pretty bland tournament.
Yeah, they're the young, hot, rocking, rock and roll babyface like team, and they're playing the role perfectly. Since they won last year, I don't feel like ultimately this is going to work out for them to end up with the IWGP Junior Tag Team title, but could be surprised. You never know. I think they're really trying to play up House of Torture around this exact moment. So I don't rule out anything regarding those titles, but they seem like the favorite to me to advance to the B block. And if they do, I think they have a good shot of winning the tournament, but not the titles.
Okay. And then after that, we have Taiji Ishimori and Robbie X. Like I mentioned, they're on 6, and we think they were supposed to be on 8, that this is supposed to be that 2-horse race. And of course, Robbie X has been featured. They do that anyway. When there is a guest and a New Japan stalwart, they usually have the guest featured more just to kind of get him over with the crowd. So this would have happened anyway, but then Ishimori was also sick. So Robbie really had to pick it up. And
he absolutely has a babyface finish.
He definitely does. Yeah.
That spectacular babyface off the top rope. It's not a heel maneuver. So if you're a babyface team, you definitely finish with that move.
He had to do a lot of work anyway, though, because Ishimori was 1, sick, and 2, they were working on getting him across to the fans. He has stepped up to me every time I've seen him. I think he has brought it. I think he is a talented guy. I think he shows a lot of interesting intensity. I would like to see more of Robbie X. Ishimori is one of the greats in junior heavyweight, so this is a fun team to watch. They're good. Again, we didn't have any great matches. It just wasn't that kind of tournament. But the action in the Ishimori X matches was always solid.
I'm not ruling out this team winning the B block.
Okay.
I don't know why, but if you were to somehow delay Fujita and Eagles getting a shot at Doki and Show by having somebody else win the Super Junior Tag League and then them losing the title, and then they like go to a 4-way or something to try and get a title shot at Wrestle Kingdom, I wouldn't be surprised. It would be indicative of just how much effort they put into this tournament.
Yeah.
So it does feel like Ishimori and Robbie X were supposed to win that one match, and that it was supposed to be 2 undefeated teams going forward. And if that's the case, it's kind of a 50-50, right? Like it could be either team.
I agree with you that I think we're seeing that the teams that either have 8 points or were supposed to have 8 points are probably the 4 teams in that 4-way at the Dome, which they haven't announced yet, but they seem to always do that. The 4 corners junior heavyweight tag match. I don't think they're doing anything clever with this division at all. So yeah, it doesn't even matter all that much who wins this thing and then the title match afterwards, because I feel like all these teams are going to be in a big pot in the end anyway come January. So
yeah, this is just content to fill time, and I got no issues with that in pro wrestling. That's basically what the weekly business model is in North America. But there are times where it just becomes so egregious that you're like, come on, guys.
At least try to make us think that you're trying.
Compel me. Oh, just a little bit. Compel me just a little.
The other team that's involved here, mathematically, is Kushida and Yuki Yoshioka. Now, Yuki Yoshioka, new to New Japan. I think I don't have this down, but I think this is Ninja Mac's spot. Probably that he was going to be the one to team with Kushida, probably. But either way, Yuki Yoshioka is a talented guy. He looks good. They've worked hard to make him look good. Kushida, considering he's in his mid-40s, still moves very, very well. A very smart worker, good at using the submission holds in a junior heavyweight way that it doesn't bog down the match. And so Kushida is a very smart worker. So they've been fine. Again, they're accidentally kind of on 6 points and mathematically in this, we believe. And but Yuki Yoshioka, another guy that teams Dragon Dia a lot over there in Dragon Gate, from what we've heard. And I can see what people like about him. I can see why they brought him in. And considering this is a division that could use an injection of new talent, if we saw more of him in, say, Super Juniors next year as a guest, I'd be in. I'd like to see this guy wrestle more.
I believe that if Kushida and Yuki Yoshioka defeat Desperado and Kikuai, and then Taiji Shimori and Robbie Epps defeat Robbie Eagles and Kosei Fujita, then we are in a statistical three-way tie.
Yeah. So then everybody will have a win in that kind of round robin-y way.
And they don't really want to do that because there isn't an easy tiebreaker because each one of them have a win over each other.
Yeah.
Like it's a 1-2-3 kind of thing. So it kind of leads me to think that it's Eagles and Fujita, but you can still have Kushida and Yoshioka lose that last night and have no bearing on the final.
And then it comes down to the last match anyway. Right. Yeah, and Kushida and Yoshioka are facing Desperado and Kukai.
And I don't see Desperado losing on the last night of a tournament.
Yeah, that could be the way they get out of it. Yeah, Desperado and Kukai, by the way, have been fine. This has been a very unremarkable run for both of them. It just feels like we're getting second gear versions of it. I think Kukai
excited for Kukai, but I have not seen anything that says like, wow, this guy.
Yeah, I haven't either. And not that he's bad, but there isn't anything that's like sign him up. Whereas there were things I saw with Doki when he came in with Suzuki-gun where I just thought, oh, there's something with this. There's something here. And if Kukai, I agree with you. The Kukai just hasn't gotten to that point yet. Nothing wrong with him, but there isn't anything that's a wow factor.
Look, if you have Desperado and Doki both giving you a vote of confidence to come over here and do this thing, it's just going to take some time to like grow into the role. But unfortunately, he's not a day one. Got it all figured out.
The other guys haven't been either and have blossomed.
Right.
So,
and it's totally fine.
Yeah,
but that's the reality.
The other team on 2 points is Kanemaru and Dick Togo, and there's nothing really to say here. They're the guys that are doing the jobs as far as House of Torture goes, since Doki and Sho are running roughshod, and so Kanemaru and Togo are here to kind of take the losses. There's really nothing else to say about this one except considering Dick Togo's age, dude still wrestles fairly well for a guy in his 50s.
A very clever name for their team.
Yeah, we're not going to do that right now.
What? Okay.
Jeez. All right. Just because Yoshinobu Kanemaru sips whiskey out of a bottle and the other guy's name is Dick Togo, we don't have to call him Whiskey Dick, do we?
Thank you.
Man, my mom listens to this. I'm sorry. All right. She always clicks the like button. Bless her heart.
Thank you, Mama Conway.
I know. She's awesome. And then we have... we mentioned Desperado and Kukai on 0 points. Tiger Mask and Yamato. Yamato has one thing that has kind of tickled me a little bit, which is a suplex thing, where he hooks the guy in for the suplex and announces that he is going to do a suplex, and he never quite does it. It never quite works out. It's almost like the Fukigen Death thing, where she tries to get the run. I don't know if the person didn't stick their foot up for Fukigen Death for her to run into it. I don't know if Fukigen Death would know what to do when she charged in. But similar to this with Yamato, it's like someday he might actually hit this suplex. It's probably going to get a pop. He kind of did in what was the match against Eagles and Fujita. He kind of hit it.
You think he'll hit it at the Tanahashi show this weekend?
Maybe so. Maybe that's when he'll do it. But Yoshioka, who was quote unquote given the high fly flow by Tanahashi, at a show did indeed hit the high fly flow. So that one got a little bit of a pop here. That was against Togo and Kanemaru to beat House of Torture. So that's the one. Yamato is doing a lot of comedy there. Tiger Mask. There's not much left of Yamazaki in there as far as the work goes.
We're seeing the slow ride into the sunset. Even the horse is tired.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And he's just not going to be able to do a whole lot in the ring right now. But I'm sure he's still everything I've heard. He's still a valuable resource behind the scenes there. But he's just not the wrestler he used to be. Who is?
I had a funny thought when you were talking about Kushida and Yuki, and you were like, "Oh, it might have been Ninja Mac right there." It's like, what if Tiger Mask and Ninja Mac were supposed to be the team?
Oh, could have been.
And then we could have had all these fun names like Tiger Mac or Ninja Mask or Tiger Ninja, or Ninja Tiger.
Yeah,
like all of these names could have got a T-shirt, Ninja Tiger on it. That would have sold a lot of money. New Japan, the Ninja Tiger.
Would have sold. Yeah, would have sold. All right. Well, there you go. We'll see how it goes. We have one more night of block action, and let's go over the possibilities there. Like you mentioned, there is a way we can get a three-way tie, but the week ahead, Saturday, November 1st, this is at the Edion Arena Professional Gymnasium. So Edion Arena is one of the big buildings in Osaka, but and also where they have had Grand Sumo there. But this show is going to be in the prefectural gym. You'll know it when you see it. It's just a big gymnasium with basketball goals in the background and all that stuff that holds a couple thousand in the same complex, but not in the big room. Tiger Mask and Yamato versus Kanemaru and Togo. That's the one that mathematically is not important. Kukai and Desperado against Yoshioka and Kushida. Again, Yoshioka and Kushida theoretically can win this match. And then if Ishimori and X win the main event against Eagles and Fujita, we would have ourselves a three-way tie. You and I both believe that's not the aim here, a three-way tie. So our guess is that Kukai and Desperado beats Yoshioka and Kushida, and then we go into the main event essentially as the semifinals. Whoever wins this thing moves on to face Sho and Doki in Gifu. So, the only thing they could do that would be different than other years would be to have Doki and Sho win out and just, cheat to win, obviously, and then shoot their own shot, so to speak. That would be, they would pick their own opponents. And then you would have to do some kind of angle to get actual opponents and challengers in there. God only knows who they would pick. Maybe they would pick Kanemaru and Dick Togo, as kind of a finger poke of doom opponents, and then threaten the idea that there isn't even going to be a legit match, and then maybe pull an angle to get out of it or whatever. That's the only thing I could think of that would be.
No.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're staring down the barrel of, though. If the winner of the main event doesn't beat him, if Ishimori and X win and they get a title shot coming out of it, fine. If Eagles and Fujita win and get a title shot coming out of it, fine. We all think that this is going to end up in some big schmaz at the Tokyo Dome with multiple teams to get people on the card, because that's what they do almost every year. Almost every year. Thank you. Last year it was the ladder match, right? Yeah.
Hey, real quick.
Yes.
We were given a reminder by the fearless leader that Jeff Hawkins and Paul Fontaine are recording a Dynamite Rewind show.
An interesting one. An interesting week in Dynamite history.
That is going to premiere on this channel that you're watching right now at 5 p.m. Pacific. The Dynamite show that they're going to be rewinding is when Shaquille O'Neal wrestled in a tag match and mysteriously vanished in an ambulance.
Hasn't been seen since, except on ESPN now, I guess, is where Inside the NBA is. So.
It was the most baffling disappearance in wrestling lore that I could think of in the last 5 years.
Last 5. Yeah, I was going to
Yep.
say there have been some baffling different disappearances, but most of those
I
people.
mean, I saw the look at your face, and I thought I should qualify that with the 5 years. I'm like,
a
definitely
lot
the
of
last 5 years.
a lot of the mysterious disappearances can be explained if you take a trip by catering. There's somebody's just kind of sitting around there like, why aren't they using you? I don't know.
The only other mysterious disappearances that I could think of that were odd and unexplained were Matt Riddle and Nick Nemeth from New Japan Pro Wrestling in 2023.
The Matt Riddle one was pretty well explained. He lost to Zack Sabre Jr., walked out, was never heard from again after sitting on a YouTube show or with one of New Japan's championship belts, talking about how much cocaine he did.
Super.
What a
super career athlete.
What a dipshit. Oh, God.
Hey, your mother's listening.
I know. I just donated to the Retired Wrestlers Fund. But for Matt Riddle, what other word would do? I mean,
Yeah.
Good grief.
Yeah, so check out that show. And actually, in addition to that, you are not going to be here in 2 weeks.
Correct.
And I have tapped one Paul Fontaine to give his thoughts about New Japan Pro Wrestling the week before we get to preview the World Tag League together.
All right. Well, there you have that. All right. So let's keep a look at this week ahead here. We got that Saturday I mentioned in Osaka. That's going to be the 3 tournament match. That's all we got so far. Kayfabe, kids. We don't have the rest of the card yet. I checked just before we went on the air. And then Sunday, November 12th. Or 12th. 2nd. Good grief. Sunday, November 2nd. In Gifu. This is the Tanahashi homecoming. This is in a gymnasium that is part of this big sports complex. There's like a track and field stadium and a soccer stadium next to it. And this little dome here where Tanahashi is from. And of course, we know now, Jeremy, also Yudo Ice, a Gifu native, went to the same middle school apparently and hasn't gotten over it. But the Gifu Tanahashi homecoming on Sunday, November 2nd. 3 matches announced so far. That's it. Again, they have not announced the undercard really, but we will have the Super Junior Tag League Finals, Sho and Doki versus the B Block winner, Global Championship, Yota Tsuji versus Hiroshi Tanahashi, and then the World Heavyweight Title match, Konosuke Takeshita versus Hiroki Goto. That's for the IWGP World Heavyweight Title. I don't see them switching up the World Heavyweight Title here quite yet, Jeremy. I think that doesn't make a whole lot of sense as much as we all love Goto. But as far as the global title goes, I'm not 100%
You're not ruling it out?
that Tanahashi doesn't put himself over for a title one more time before he exits the stage. You can never discount Tanahashi putting himself over here, or any other time for that matter. But yeah, this one feels like one that he might win. I still think it's probably Tsuji, but I don't know. In his hometown for the global title, you can't rule it out, can you?
I think the consolation prize is getting to see Tanahashi challenge for his last title in his hometown rather than him winning the title for the last time in his hometown, because let's pull the string here. If Tanahashi wins, that means whoever his wrestling opponent is now potentially wrestling for a title at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah.
If that's the case, that person's probably wrestling more than one match for the company.
Yeah.
Does that happen? I'm not necessarily sure. I'm inclined to believe that Tanahashi just loses this match, because the other reason is I'm not sure who Takeshita wrestles if it's not Tsuji. And Takeshita shouldn't be wrestling Tsuji if Tsuji loses a match before Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, you're right. And there's a lot to that where, Tsuji beats Tanahashi, probably a handshake, a little show of respect. Tanahashi gets the long goodbye, hugging everybody and wiping his sweat on everybody's towels. Yeah. And then you have the World Heavyweight Title match, and then the guy who won the big match before comes out to challenge. It's all very New Japan-y.
Look, if you think about what video packages they're gonna do for Wrestle Kingdom, it's going to be, 2 paths colliding, Yota Tsuji and Takeshita, where they both had different paths to get to the top and get to this main event match. Tsuji fought his way through the entirety of the New Japan roster. Takeshita did it the same way, but he disappeared afterwards. matches. So if you're going to do a video package where you have Tsuji beating one of the old guard in his match, and you have Takeshita beating one of the old guard in his match, and it's kind of like these are your gatekeepers for this big main event that you got, it makes all the sense in the world. Tsuji's elevated by Tanahashi, Takeshi's elevated by Goto. These two supposedly biggest stars in New Japan's business are then going to meet in the semi-main because they're not the main event.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. That'll be in Gifu. And so we don't have the rest of the card. We just don't know.
Yeah. No, we between November 1st and November 2nd, we almost have one full card, but we just have 6 matches. Honestly, there's not a whole lot more to talk about other than I think you wanted to talk about some other stuff outside of New Japan, right?
The business has been down, and we've talked about that a lot. Of course, they just drew 5,372 for King of Pro Wrestling, which is the lowest attended KOPW ever, and over 1,000 less than they drew for Sakura Genesis in the same building earlier this year. There's been a lot of, we've been down on this tournament. It's been a lower, it's been an ebb, not a flow for New Japan lately. We've been hurting a little bit. And the USVA guy said a certain someone may want his white belt back. Oh, God. We'll have to see how that turns out. But as I look at this, of course, New Japan is going through a rough time. Objectively, business is down. It's hurting. We're seeing 15 to 20% for the most part, year over year down. But what I have seen the rest of this month is a little bit encouraging if New Japan can right the ship creatively. Here's what I mean, Jeremy. I don't think people are moving away from pro wrestling in Japan. I just think they're moving away from New Japan. We have a rare opportunity to compare apples to mostly apples this month. In October, 4 different companies really, ran big shows at Ryogoku Kokugi-Con. And I thought we would do a little comparison of them. So New Japan mentioned 5,372 was the listed attendance. So it's probably a little bit less than that in reality. Now, WWE ran 2 super shows at Sumo Hall. They did not announce attendances.
Right.
But looking at photographs, it doesn't look much more to me like half full.
3,500?
Maybe 45. Maybe.
Okay.
I mean, they didn't have an enormous set blocking off a lot of the seats and things. So I would say 45 or something like that.
Let's go 4,000.
But not much bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
Pro Wrestling Noah, which is not up radically year over year, but has a little bit of energy to it, ran a show at Sumo Hall that drew 3,617. Not bad. For Noah, it's certainly, that's a strong crowd for Noah. 3,617 with Kenta and Kitamiya on top. Then Marigold last week put on this wonderful show that I watched on pay-per-view on Wrestle Universe. Every single match had something interesting. Some of them were absolutely blow-away matches. All 3 of the top matches were outstanding. Io Shirai versus Mayu Iwatani, Io Sky. That match was as good as you would think. Emotional, athletic, absolutely brilliant from 2 of the very best in the world. Mai Sakurai and Victoria Yuzuki had a terrific one that cements Victoria Yuzuki as one of the rising stars of the company. And then Utami Hayashishita put over Miku Ano, who had won the Dream Star Grand Prix in a terrific red belt match. So she is now the world champion of Marigold, Victoria Yuzuki being the United National champion. It was a terrific tag team title match with Chiaki and Matsui beating Magenta. And just up and down this thing, Sari and Shika Goto. They even had, Jeremy, I don't know if you saw, Megaton against Minoru Suzuki. Her surprise opponent was Minoru Suzuki. And they did a fun comedy match that I really enjoyed, basically, where Megaton savvily tapped out, gave up before she could take the Gotch pile driver. So he got her up for the Gotch pile driver and she tapped. And he didn't get to put it on her.
No.
then he just chased her out of the ringside area. And the whole thing was her just being absolutely petrified of Minoru Suzuki as a mystery opponent. Really strong show, Jeremy, that drew, I'm going to get the number right here, according to them, 3,450. So Marigold drew almost as much as Noah and in the same ballpark as the others, really.
Very competitive.
Stardom actually oddly laid low this month. They ran 3 different new blood shows, which are their ones for up and coming talent and the younger people, the rookies and things like that. Those younger person shows. They ran one Korakuen Hall with a tag team title match on top. That was good. It was good, and then mostly house shows. They just kind of laid back and let everybody else have their big shows this month. They have big. Well, they have big stuff coming up. They've got a major one with Momo Watanabe and Saya Kamitani coming up in early November. And then, of course, their big show, Dream Queendom, is going to be in December.
All right.
But looking at the state of the business, Noah, again, it's not a blockbuster number. They're not up like 20% or, all that kind of stuff, but up. And those shows feel like they have more energy than they used to, Noah. Some of the stuff with Ozawa and Team 2000, it's good. Marigold, one of the best shows they've done and a clear success, an unqualified success. It was almost a summit too, because Takuma Aroha was there in the back. Micah and Hemika, like 2 of the biggest Stardom wrestlers, were there in the back. Jungle Kiona, all backstage for this thing. It was almost like a little summit. And of course, because the Super Show had been there, Julia had dinner with Mai Sakurai and Rossi Ogawa earlier in the week, and it was just a very positive experience for everybody right there with a big crowd. So I feel like there are still a lot of wrestling fans. They're just kind of drifting away from this rather lazily booked era of New Japan right now, where, again, there aren't any baby faces to get behind and all the things we've talked about over and over again on here. The good news is they don't seem to be drifting away from wrestling, which means you can get them back. If you fix things, they're still there. And I think they're just kind of similar to what we saw with WWE, where, they were with AEW. And I'm not saying that they've all gone away, although, AEW's down. But as soon as WWE, quote unquote, got good with the bloodline angle and things, they came flooding back. I think there are still wrestling fans in Japan. New Japan just can change direction and get them back, because really the only company that's slumping right now is New Japan. Even All Japan had a show without a Triple Crown title match. Kento Miyahara kept his, but without a Triple Crown title match on it, that did almost as many as what New Japan's been doing this week throughout Niigata. So, their numbers and New Japan's house show numbers fairly even there. It just seems like the only company that's really in a slump right now. And I think that has to do with the creative direction, and hopefully they can turn that around. But I think fans are just waiting for them to get, quote unquote, good again. And we'll see if that comes up after the Dome.
I hope so. I don't think they're the only bigger promotion with that problem. I think WWE and AEW are also kind of suffering from that.
Well, I'm talking about Japan. I'm talking about
I know,
Japan,
but I'm just saying, like, there's a greater sentiment in pro wrestling in general, where you have all of these promotions and they have so much content coming at you. In Japan, there is still a ton of content coming at you. In America, there's a ton of content coming at you. Even in Mexico with AAA and CMLL, there's all this content. The problem with all this content is that, for the most part right now, it's just okay. It's not great stuff across the board. And so when you're inundated with tons and tons of simply average product, you get overwhelmed and you get burned out easier. And you're like, I need to take a step back here. Like, this is too much and I can't take it all in. I'm not getting out of it what I want. And that's the cost of so much product getting flooded into all of these markets. So the solution is not more product. It is to tighten down the product that you as a company are offering, getting the creative back on track, establishing wrestlers with connections to the audience that get them out again. And that is for every promotion. Stardom is doing that. Marigold is doing that. Noah has talent that's doing that. New Japan getting there, but they are woefully behind everyone else in finding that catalyst to energize the crowd.
or allowing someone to do it, which we're
Right.
hoping to see here very soon. Just get behind somebody. Give
So
the
I'm
fans
sorry I
somebody
went
to
so over like the umbrella, but I had a larger point to make.
No, that's fine. I mean, I really feel like it's a New Japan creative issue right now,
Yeah.
and maybe a little bit of morale because it just seems like the guys are in second gear and don't really want to get out of it. And like I said, that becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy where morale is down, so they kind of mope through their matches. The crowds see that. The crowds stop coming. Crowds are down. The guys' morale goes down. They start moping through their match. It becomes this spiral. And we're just seeing this kind of moping through things going on. And I hope they're
How
able to
does
come
the
out.
top promotion in a territory recreate that creative spike to become competitive when it's clear that the competition is not doing the job for them?
Yeah. I mean,
The competition should get you better at like coming out with creative and angles and all this stuff. And it just feels like they're moving to the beat of their own drum almost, and they're not being challenged in the business place other than the recession, which allows them to create an excuse that belies an urgency. You know what I mean? Like, because it's a recession, it's happening to everyone. It's not that bad as long as we can get through it, rather than maybe we can create something here and people will still want to spend their money, but we're not willing to take that chance.
Yeah, the thing is, the recession is happening to everybody, but the
Yes.
attendance drops are not. The attendance drops are not. And
So that's where that philosophy kind of falls apart.
Yeah. And I think it'll help getting the Tanahashi story done and dusted.
Yep.
I think that'll help. But until they decide to let the fans believe in somebody who's actually going to be there for a while. When they had it with Goto, there was a Goto bump. That for those 4 months or so that he held the championship, crowds were up. Crowds were actually up. And I know that he wanted to go do the movie, and they should let him do the movie, and that's going to be good long term and things.
He didn't need to win the title for that, though.
Yeah, I know, and you wonder if he should have. But the Goto bump was something. But as soon as he lost, and then it just fizzled, and you're just seeing a whole bunch of baby faces who can't get the job done, and people just. That's not the kind of thing that's going to make people shell out their money to go and see and support these guys if they're just going to be failed over and over again.
They do this traditional business where they're like, oh, this guy is going to be leaving. He may potentially have an injury. Let's take the belt off of him, and then we'll do this transitional thing with Zack Sabre Jr. going to Takeshita. What if they had done this instead? What if Goto has the title, goes through the G1 with the title, as the title champion, news breaks that he's off to film a movie, a big blockbuster movie. As the champion, he's away, he comes back, he's still a big star, he's this movie star now that has filmed like this huge role with a bunch of WWE stars and all this other thing, comes back as the champion. You have your guy like right there.
Yeah. I agree with you. I don't think they needed to take it off. I don't think I don't think they needed to quote unquote injure him and send him away. They could just say our world champion has been selected to be in a big time Hollywood movie. Isn't that freaking awesome, everybody? He's going to be gone for a little while, but we can't wait till he gets back. Yeah, you didn't need to break his momentum.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm with you.
Diecast. We are where we are.
Yeah.
But there are things that you can look back and say, maybe you shouldn't have done that.
Hopefully we have our hero soon. All right, Jeremy. Well, there's not a whole lot more to say, but we only have 2 shows coming up this week. The Saturday show and the Sunday show, nothing in the middle of the week there. There is a November 4th show, like a tradition thing. But that's
Tenryu, maybe?
Tenryu. Yeah, it's Tenryu. Yeah, that's what it is.
10-year retirement anniversary. We are celebrating the 10-year anniversary of his retirement.
Can't wait. Yeah,
and of course, literally the show on November 4th. I was like, oh, at least it's not a pay-per-view.
It is not a pay-per-view, and it's also not listed on the schedule of New Japan shows, so you can see where this kind of lands on the scale of canon.
It's advertised on World as a show, However, World, throughout the entirety of the week, did not put up any listings for the Super Junior Tag League matches before they happened. Basically, if you were looking and wondering if that match was happening, you would have to look elsewhere. Otherwise, once the show was broadcast, the link would pop up for you to check out that show, which has not happened in the past. Usually at the top, there's a runner of all the shows that are upcoming, but this time it was just the shows after this tour.
It's been a weird week, hasn't it? I mean, it's just such a strange week in New Japan with that kind of stuff. Those kind of errors they don't usually make and all this stuff. Yeah. And the other thing I noticed, Jeremy, what was odd, 2 nights in Korakuen Hall, Chris Charlton calling the action by himself with a wrestler coming in and sitting in on commentary.
And then as soon as they leave,
like Walker's there after that. Not in Korakuen, but after. Puzzling.
I don't know, man.
This company confuses the hell out of me sometimes.
You heard me opine my theories about why this happened earlier in the show, and I don't want to run that back, but you can apply those same theories to this.
Yeah, they're doing it on the cheap. All right. Well, with that in mind, we will come back next Thursday. We're going to talk about the Tanahashi homecoming, a couple of big title matches, and maybe some more information about the Dome, right? Maybe, perhaps, maybe.
There's no way that they can't do the Tanahashi retirement celebration and not have a retirement match announced. I mean, from what we talked about last week, there's absolutely nothing new regarding who Tanahashi's opponent could be. It's been complete radio silence among everyone and everything, which honestly sounds to me like a good thing. It's like there was definitely chatter, and that chatter basically got shut up real quick after some of the conversations that were happening on Thursday and Friday, like the Fightful stuff. And after all that, all the channels got locked down. So that to me says that there might be a little bit more fire to the smoke, but either way, there's no way that we can have this big show on Sunday and not at least have a good chunk of these matches from the top down ready to go.
Whatever happens, we'll be here to talk about it and analyze it and bring you up to date on it.
Yes,
so I want to thank everybody that joined us here. Maria and Fernando, USVA guy. Glad you were with us. And I'd imagine that Colin, who's normally here, probably recovering from Brendan Rodgers getting sacked at Celtic, his arch rival team. So there's a big controversial firing on Celtic. So that was a big week there for the Scottish Premier League. I'm sure Colin's just recovering from that, and hopefully he'll be back with us very soon. So
who you got winning the World Series, Stephen?
2 games left in. The thing is, Yamamoto's pitching Game 6, and he is absolutely lights out. But winning 2 games in Toronto is a big ask, especially with a shaky bullpen. I think that the Blue Jays can get one of them, but don't put anything past Shohei Ohtani and the Dodgers. But
there's a lot of momentum in the Toronto area right now. I feel like that 18-inning game took more out of the Dodgers than we thought, and it is a war of attrition. And then what else? There was something else I was going to ask you. Oh, are you going to wear anything for Halloween tomorrow?
No, nothing special. We are handing out a lot of candy. We've got a lot of kids in the neighborhood, so there's going to be a lot of candy handed out, and we're going to have a little treat for the adults as well. So, but as far as the big costume goes, no, we're not doing the big dress up this year. Although I have a Day of the Dead style skeleton onesie for a party that I might drag out for this one maybe.
I might wear this to work tomorrow, my Star Wars helmet, because I work in a front-facing store that kind of requires me to be able to have my hands and feet accessible, and I feel like wearing a helmet is the proper compromise to me not being completely encumbered by a costume that would drive me mad when I'm just trying to do my job.
Yeah. Those get warm quick too, don't they? Those all the suits and things.
All that stuff. So I have a bunch of different helmets because I'm a giant nerd. There you go, Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, Fernando's going to be the Phantom of the Opera. Nice.
I thought you were going to be Tony Schiavone at first, but Phantom of the Opera's all
right. Phantom of the Opera is a good one. Yeah, maybe I'll dig out one of my lucha masks and wear that out there.
There you go. So,
not the Bushi one. This one's a collector's item. We're keeping that one
pristine.
safe. That's right. All right,
get out of here, buddy.
Yeah, with that in mind, I want to say thank you to everybody who watches live, everybody who listens to us here on the YouTube channel or as a podcast later. We thank you very much for your time, and we'll be back next week with Jeremy Finestone. I'm Stephen Conway. This has been Speaking of Strong Style, and we'll talk to you again real soon.